Highlights of today's Champion Cup snooker in half an hour, but now it's 11 o'clock, time for the ITV Nightly News.
Court gives Camelot the right to challenge lottery decision. Sierra Leone rebels begin talks over soldier hostages. Hospital inundated with goodwill messages for Reggie Cray. And England's injury worries ahead of France clash.
From ITN, the ITV Nightly News with Nicholas Owen.
Good evening. The High Court threw the national lottery operator Camelot a lifeline today. A judge ruled that the company can challenge the Lottery Commission's decision to exclude it from negotiations on who wins the next licence to operate the game. Camelot also announced how it plans to overcome one of the Commission's main objections to its bid. Both developments increased the pressure on Sir Richard Branson's People's Lottery. Chris Joy reports.
The Camelot executive who failed to stop Branson's lottery talks, but did get a review of the decision to favour his People's Lottery. It was a day when she won one, lost one and bought one. The lottery's sitting tenant now wants to purchase the firm that caused it problems.
Today we put forward to the Commission proposals to meet their stated concerns over our technology supplier GTEC. We have agreed with GTEC to purchase all relevant lottery software from them and to take over their UK operation and their staff.
GTEC is responsible for Camelot's 5-second wonder. Their systems take the numbers we select and transmit them via satellite to a main computer. Somewhere in this process before 1998 there was a fault and thousands were paid less than they should have been. GTEC fixed the problem, but officials aren't happy with the firm. Camelot now aims to take them out of the equation.
Well, Camelot buying GTEC UK, they're offering a sweetener to the deal. They're offering a sweetener to the Lottery Commission by saying, we realise that you have a problem with this, we're going to take it back. That way you have any gripe, it's going to be with Camelot and nobody else is going to be involved.
The danger now is that this delay and complexity will jeopardise the relaunch of the lottery. Here today, that sense of urgency was put into the language of racing. Richard Branson may still occupy the inside track, but Camelot says it's still in the running. Chris Choi, ITN at the High Court.
Army negotiators today met briefly with one of the British soldiers being held in Sierra Leone. Talks with the rebel group who took them hostage are still at a delicate stage, but hopes of their release are growing. Tim Ewart sent this report by satellite phone video link.
Right, slightly lower, yeah, you're going over his head.
As Sierra Leone's latest hostage crisis continued, soldiers from the Royal Irish Regiment were working as normal today, training army recruits to fight the rebels. Officers here say the 11 men being held captive are well prepared for such an ordeal.
They are an experienced group. They've served operationally recently in Kosovo and in Northern Ireland, and considerable amount of training, some of that training actually in Africa. So I've got no worries at all that they'll be perfectly capable of looking after themselves.
This is the base at Benguema where the British troops are stationed and where Sierra Leone's government army is prepared for battle. Everyone here seems confident that the hostages will soon be released unharmed. But what's happened has once again underlined the unpredictability of Sierra Leone and the dangers faced by troops operating here. Negotiators meeting rebels in the jungle beyond the capital Freetown have now been able to talk directly to some of the hostages. And their physical condition is okay?
Yes, they're all not only in good well-being, but also in very good spirits.
Tonight the negotiating goes on, and so does the waiting. Tim Ewart, ITN, Benguema, Sierra Leone.
A hospital doctor has been driven from her home after her job as a paediatrician was confused with the word paedophile. The walls of her house near Newport in South Wales were daubed with graffiti. Tim Rogers reports.
At the Royal Gwent Hospital, colleagues of the doctor who was targeted in the attack said this evening they were appalled she should have been singled out in such a way. They said 28-year-old South African-born Yvette Cloet is highly regarded by all those who work with her and is a respected member of staff. At the doctor's home near Newport, the offending words that she found daubed on her front door have been removed, but some paint remains.
This really is an extremely mean act, particularly because the person who's the victim is in fact a caring member of the community who helps to try and look after people.
My 2-year-old was in hospital last year with pneumonia, and she was the doctor that treated her. She's wonderful.
Dr. Cloette has been unavailable for comment, but it's thought that she'd already decided to move home before the attack. While police inquiries continue to discover those responsible, she's told friends she won't be coming back. Tim Rogers, ITN, Newport, South Wales.
The government's been playing down fears over new findings on BSE. Scientists believe the disease could be transferred from one species to another and then to humans more easily than they previously thought. It's raised new questions over the safety of the meat we eat. Here's Sue Saville.
Customers concerned about the potential new sources of BSE are being told tonight by the government's Food Standards Agency there's no need to change their eating habits. This butcher isn't worried by the new research.
Well, it doesn't actually prove anything within the meat trade because of all the safeguards that the government has already put in place. So I have 100% confidence in the safeguards which they're operating now.
The work carried out in this laboratory found that BSE could be transmitted from hamsters into mice without the mice appearing ill. It raises the possibility that other animals fed on contaminated feed might be carrying the disease. But the public shouldn't be alarmed, says a leading food scientist.
We've been through fire and water with BSE. We had bad problems 10 and 15 years ago. Those problems are behind us. We have very, very extensive controls. A lot of people spend a lot of time just thinking about whether we're doing the right thing.
The safeguards in place restrict the age of cattle and cuts of meat allowed into the food chain, and transmission in humans is limited by controls on blood products and surgical equipment. The government's expert committee on mad cow disease will consider whether further measures are needed to protect public health when it meets in a month's time, leaving consumers tonight still waiting for answers. Sue Saville, ITN, North London.
The hospital treating the notorious gangster Reggie Kray for cancer has been inundated by calls from well-wishers jamming its switchboard. The solution today, a special hotline for those who want to leave him a message. Juliette Bremner reports.
A violent legacy has done little to deter those anxious to send Kray their good wishes. Admirers pleased to see him free at last, even as a dying man. But the volume of those calling the hospital has been causing serious problems. A special hotline's been set up to ease the pressure.
People who are trying to ring up for appointments or, to find out about other patients in the hospital can't get through the switchboard, and so they're hanging on and hanging on. And we are actually, we're supposed to answer the telephone in 2 rings. So, the switchboard staff have been getting quite stressed.
Pictures taken by a national newspaper show just how frail the 66-year-old is as he battles cancer. But friends say the fighting spirit remains.
His sense of humour is still as good as anything. It's perfect. And his grip when he shook hands is great. Just as firm as ever. And he's really nice. Terrific guy, a born fighter.
Although staff here at the hospital say that Kray remains in a comfortable condition, it's impossible to predict whether he'll ever be well enough to go home. In the meantime, both they and his wife are appealing for anyone who wants to contact him to write rather than clogging up the switchboard. Juliette Bremner, ITN, at the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital.
The latest victim of the continuing feud between Northern Ireland's loyalist factions is in intensive care tonight. 11-year-old Charlene Daly was shot when gunmen opened fire on her home in Coleraine. Police investigations are continuing into the shooting. The girl said to be in a stable condition. Russian engineers got inside Moscow's burnt-out television tower today to begin assessing the extent of the damage. The city authorities hope the tower can be repaired, as do ordinary Muscovites, whose TV screens have been blank since the fire broke out. From Moscow, Tim Wilcox reports.
Ostankino burned for nearly 26 hours, the second tallest structure in the world, destroyed by a simple electrical short circuit and a faulty sprinkler system. The blaze wiped out millions of pounds worth of television transmitters, leaving some 16 million Muscovites with blank screens. Everything's gone, explained this woman. It could be weeks before it's back on.
And it's not just television that's been affected by the fire. The Ostankino Tower also served as a strategic communications artery for the armed forces and security agencies.
They, like millions of Russians, now want to know if the tower can be rebuilt or if it must be pulled down.
Behind the security cordon today, structural engineers were still assessing the damage.
It's a disaster for Russia, it's a disaster for Moscow, maybe it's a disaster for the neighboring nations. I don't know where the limit will be. Maybe it's a disaster for the whole world.
Moscow's burned-out tower is seen by many here as another terrible example of the decay of today's Russia, a country which experts warn could soon come to a virtual standstill unless money is spent on essential services. Tim Wilcox, ITN, Moscow.
And Russia has announced that it's to start work next month on recovering bodies from the submarine Kursk. Divers will start cutting holes in the hull to retrieve the 118 crew who died on board. Investigators are considering whether the disaster was caused by a torpedo misfiring inside the submarine. The race to be America's next president is suddenly neck and neck. Al Gore at last appears to have seized the initiative from George W. Bush. Mr. Bush has seen his lead in the opinion polls shrink dramatically, and he's made the odds slip up on the campaign trail. From Washington, Robert Moore reports.
As both candidates prepare for the final campaign push, the latest polls show Al Gore and George W. Bush to be in a virtual dead heat. But that disguises a remarkable turnaround for the vice president, who was way behind a month ago, but now is setting the pace and tone of this election campaign.
Well, we're going to do our best to help you all.
Already racing from state to state, Al Gore is taking political advantage of the surging economy, but he's also promising still better times ahead.
I'm not satisfied. You ain't seen nothing yet.
In sharp contrast, Governor Bush has been holding only low-key events, like today in this classroom, perhaps recovering from a series of gaffes, including mixing up his numbers on his budget plan.
$1.9 billion to an additional spending of $1.9 trillion.
He's left to hope that despite a surging economy, Americans still want a change.
We must set a new tone in Washington, D.C. We must end the era of finger-pointing and name-calling and political bickering.
All the signs are that Gore and Bush are now locked into what could become a remarkably tight contest. In that environment, the presidential debates scheduled for October could become the defining moment of the campaign. Al Gore is certainly being helped by the fact that President Clinton has now stepped off the domestic stage, allowing Mr. Gore to dominate the headlines and emerge from the president's shadow. Robert Moore, ITN, Washington.
Football now, and both Kevin Keegan and Craig Brown put the finishing touches to their squads for the weekend's international matches. England are struggling with injury worries. Scotland have similar problems. Graham Miller reports.
The problems are mounting for Kevin Keegan. This time it's injuries. He's called lead striker Alan Smith into the squad because of doubts about Manchester United's Andrew Cole, who set out training this morning with a sore Achilles tendon. And also Kevin Phillips of Sunderland, who hurt his shoulder playing on Saturday. Just there, in fact. With Emil Heskey already out and Alan Shearer retired, Keegan may call up another striker tomorrow, but he's confident the situation will improve, and he's not yet ready to give former captain Shearer an emergency call.
If I had to do it, I would give him a ring, but I don't think, to be honest with you, we're at that stage. And, the reason Alan wanted to finish with international football is spend more time with his family.
The last time England met France was 18 months ago, when the world champions beat them 2-0 at Wembley. While England's match on Saturday against France in Paris is a friendly, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and the Republic all have vital World Cup qualifying fixtures to look forward to. Scotland, preparing for their qualifier against Latvia, are hopeful their injury problems will improve. Coach Craig Brown believes Paul Lambert will be okay, despite being stretchered off in the Old Firm game on Sunday. Kevin Keegan, meantime, has another month before he has to worry about World Cup qualifiers, although Saturday's friendly with France will be some preparation. Graham Miller, ITN Sport, at the England training camp.
Tonight's main news, Camelot's won permission to challenge the decision to disqualify it from the race to run the National Lottery. And tonight's financial figures in London, the main 100 share index was up more than 22 points. On Wall Street, the Dow closed nearly 38 points down and the pound dived again to its lowest level for more than 6 years. And now for our regular look at tomorrow's papers. The Daily Telegraph reports that Camelot is back in the running to win the National Lottery. It pictures the famous barrister George Carman relaxing after announcing his retirement because of ill health. The Independent has claims by Britain's leading scientists that human cloning will be inevitable within 20 years. It also reports on the lottery. The Times front page reports that the government's to crack down on animal rights extremists. It carries the touching picture of the shooting victim, 11-year-old Charlene Daly. The Daily Mail has Camelot's court victory and says the National Lottery has been thrown into chaos. Its picture is of Tara Palmer-Tomkinson, who it says is to model for Marks and Spencer. And The Sun pictures Madonna and her British boyfriend Guy Ritchie and speculates that they may be getting engaged. It also reports that a girl of 6 was sexually assaulted after being snatched from a hotel room in Spain. That's the ITV Nightly News. I'll be here again at 11 tomorrow. For now, though, good night.
Hello, good evening. It's been a pleasant day all around today. The reason why high pressure firmly in charge, that clings on during tomorrow. Then towards the end of the week, we have a change with the low pressure moving in and leading to wet and windy conditions all around. For tomorrow, though, there's definitely a respite. Temperatures are looking good once again. Then they tend to dip away towards the end of the week with an autumnal feel to things, with rain and showers as well. Now back to the moment at hand, and as for tonight's weather, it's a case of clear skies, some mist and fog patches floating around, and quite a chill in the air with temperatures dipping as low as 6 degrees. Once that fog clears tomorrow, it settles into another fine day, dry, settled, plenty of sunshine as well. The odd chance of a shower out towards East Anglia, always more in the way of cloud for northern Scotland as well as the Northern Isles, some drizzle here as well. For the most part, though, dry and fine. Later on, we have the skies clouding over in the very far northwest, and that heralds rain ahead for these parts. The wind increases here tomorrow, elsewhere not a problem at all, and temperatures very similar to today's values, a high of 22 or 72 in Fahrenheit. That's all from me.
Power Gen. Power, whatever the weather.
Now here on Granada, tonight's roundup of today's news from around our region.
Good evening. A coroner in Greater Manchester has ruled that another of Harold Shipman's former patients was unlawfully killed. Today's inquest on Alice Kitchen was the second in a series of hearings on suspected victims of the former High GP. Emma Murphy reports.
Alice Kitchen was a reasonably healthy 70-year-old when she died in 1994. The patient of former GP and serial killer Harold Shipman was found at home by her son, with a note from the doctor stating he believed she'd suffered a stroke, but had been unable to persuade her to seek further medical help. On finding her body, the family phoned for an ambulance and informed the police of her sudden death. Dr. Shipman, however, cancelled the police, claiming they weren't necessary, as he'd seen her just hours before death. He also said it was a blessing that she died from a heart attack, because the stroke would have left her paralysed with a speech problem. The family contacted police when the Shipman investigation began. They'd always had concerns about their mother's death. After today's verdict of unlawful killing, they issued a statement through their solicitor.
They are deeply shocked at their mother's sudden death back in June of 1994. On that day, they thanked Dr. Shipman, and they had no doubt that their mother was also smiling and thanking him too. However, today's verdict has confirmed the suspicions they held from the very outset.
24 other inquests into suspected victims are due to be held over the next few months.
The family of a man who was beaten and stabbed to death in Greater Manchester have made a plea for information. 20-year-old Matthew Connolly was attacked by a gang of 7 men at his home in Moston on Saturday night. He died on the way to hospital. His family say there's no reason why Mr. Connolly should have been targeted. They believe that he may have been the victim of mistaken identity.
My nephew
die for no reason. And that's why, you know, people around here, you know, somebody must have seen something. Just please come forward and just help the police.
A 24-year-old man from Merseyside has been jailed for 18 months for breaking Robbie Fowler's nose. The Liverpool and England striker was punched at a hotel in the city in April of last year. Paul Noon, who's from Everton, had admitted unlawfully wounding Fowler and a drug charge. The judge at Liverpool Crown Court said it was a serious and unprovoked attack, which was no fault of Fowler's. Police in Cheshire are hunting a man they believe has carried out a string of raids on banks and building societies over the past 3 years. The robber is thought to have struck 13 times, as Rob Wincheffel reports.
At this raid at the Royal Bank of Scotland in Congleton, the man calmly queues, and when he reaches the counter, he points to a gun in his plastic bag and demands cash before strolling out. Police fear the calmness of the raid may eventually lead to violence.
This is obviously a very dangerous individual, and this is why we want to catch him. You can't rule out the possibility that should somebody get in his way or somebody not comply with his request, that he could turn violent.
Police believe the man has committed 13 similar robberies dating back 3 years across the North West and the Midlands, and feel there may be a link to the dates.
It may well be the amount of money that he's stolen. He may feel he doesn't need to do an offence for a couple of months. It might well be that he's in hospital, or maybe he's working away. Is he in prison?
The man is described as being in his early 50s, 5 foot tall with stocky build. He has a round face with dark greying hair. There is an offer of a £15,000 reward, and anyone with any information should contact Cheshire Police on 01244 614 234.
Lawyers for David and Victoria Beckham have been at the High Court today trying to block publication of a book about them. The couple claim that former Minder Mark Niblett broke a confidentiality agreement when he passed information to author Andrew Morton. But Mr. Morton claims that the material had already been made public. The case continues tomorrow. Finally, holidaymakers in a North Wales resort could scarcely believe their eyes when a tornado appeared off the coast. The 200-foot twister amazed visitors in Llandudno as it developed from dark clouds hovering over the sea. When it reached the mainland, it broke, bringing nothing more than a heavy downpour. Experts say it reflects the freak weather seen across the country over the bank holiday. And that's all from the newsroom today. Our next bulletin is at 6:10 tomorrow morning in GMTV from the Lake Team. Good night.
Granada weather.
Well, once again, we've seen a fair few showers across our region this afternoon and this evening. Now, much like yesterday, the showers will tend to die away fairly readily over the next few hours, so it should become dry. We'll find some long, clear spells at first, but it will become quite misty, and there's still the chance of a few shallow fog patches by first thing, especially, say, in low-lying areas. Temperatures tonight falling no lower than 8 Celsius, winds remaining very light and from the east. Tomorrow, well, it's another misty start to the day, but it should be a dry one. The mist and any shallow fog patches will tend to burn away fairly readily, with plenty of sunshine coming through. We're not feeling too bad at all in the afternoon. Winds remaining very light and generally from the west, temperatures up to 20 Celsius. A quick look at the details for Thursday. It's clouding over with outbreaks of rain to come later.
For a more detailed 5-day outlook, call Weather Update on 09068 559977.